So, how did you first grasp an interest in neuroscience, or when did you first learn that you loved doing neuroscience, and when did you get into it?
So when I was an undergraduate at Stanford University, I thought about majoring in psychology. I took a lot of psychology classes, but I was really intrigued by what was happening at the cellular level during a lot
Hmm.
of the syndromes and situations that we were learning about in psychology. So I started taking some biology classes. At the time, there was no neuroscience major.
Hmm.
But I found that I got an appreciation of the molecular mechanisms underlying the psychological disorders in my biology classes. So I
Hmm.
felt that neuroscience was the perfect marriage of those two aspects of science and research that I enjoyed. And I was working in a neuroscience lab
Hmm.
around the same time, so that just solidified my interest.
Right. Um, I do understand that you obviously have done a lot of research. During any time of your research, have you ever come up with unexpected results or roadblocks, or has research mostly been straightforward throughout the things you have done?
No, definitely lots of roadblocks. That's kind of par for the course with research.
Hmm.
And I think my most unexpected finding was when I was a graduate student at Columbia.
Hmm.
We were again looking at the mechanisms underlying synaptic transmission, how neurons communicate with each other. And
Hmm.
we wanted to boil it down to its most basic machinery to see what's the minimum amount of uh, components necessary for synaptic activity.
Hmm.
And so we were using non-neuronal cells and reconstituting the components of a synapse. And we were found that we were able to replicate synaptic transmission
Hmm.
just by giving it back certain components. So it really speaks to the fact that neurons are not as unique as we think they are, that
Hmm.
other cells in our body have a lot of the same machinery and capabilities, but are just lacking, for example, a few proteins or neurotransmitters.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know if that answered your question, but
Yeah, I think it did, yeah. Um, as per like neuroscience and what you are involved in, do you think that things in neuroscience will have a trend or breakthrough that will emerge over the next couple of years, or will it just relatively stay like the same level of like technology as it is right now?
I definitely think that with AI and machine learning, there's going to be a huge jump in capability for especially like clinical neuroscience with using brain computer interfaces. For example, I've already seen some videos of people, regaining motor function after injury from using machines that are controlled by AI, machine learning, and their brains to tell certain parts of their body to move,
Hmm.
or generating speech through thought processes. So, somebody who's lost the ability to either move or speak through stroke or injury would then be able to regain that function using the computer interface with the brain.
Hmm. Um, because you are a professor, how do you exactly balance your like busyness with like research and teaching? And which one would you say carries a lot more weight and time commitment?
Well, right now, I will be fully transparent that my research is definitely taking a hit because of my
Hmm.
other responsibilities. I
Hmm.
mostly collaborate now with other labs who
Hmm.
have active research programs. Um, I don't have a lot of students myself anymore.
Hmm.
However, I'd say the key to success in having a productive research lab as well as balancing a teaching responsibility is by having excellent students, graduate students, postdoctoral fellows in your lab who you trust,
Hmm.
and they carry out the experiments
Hmm.
hands-on, report back to you, and you have a really good way of managing all of that. So
Hmm. Right.
when my lab was at its most productive, that's definitely how it operated. Now I have
Hmm.
a responsibility as an administrator
Hmm.
for being as a dean and a vice chancellor, assistant vice chancellor. So
Hmm.
that's different.
And would you say this takes up more time than like your average research being the dean of like these departments?
Yeah, definitely does. But I love it. So
Hmm.
I have no regrets about shifting my focus away from research. I think mm, I'll be fully transparent that my research was never going to amount to anything that
Hmm.
impactful. And I think I'm having a larger impact by mentoring graduate students and postdocs
Hmm.
now.
Hmm. What are some of the like most significant challenges of your work and your experience so far?
Um, I think the most significant challenges are reproducibility with animal models. So a lot of my
Hmm.
work depended on animal behavior, either cognitive or motor or like psychological. We studied mental health disease too. And we use mice, and they don't always behave the way you expect them to or consistent amongst a group of them. I mean, same could be said with humans. So, um, I think generating models for high throughput screening using non-animal models that more directly can inform human studies will
Hmm.
improve the way we can bring our science to clinical settings.
Hmm. I found a publication called Imaging the Large Scale and Cellular Responses to Focal Traumatic Brain Injury in Mice Neocortexes. I'm interested in how you came up with like this research, or if you just collaborated, or if this was a standalone project and how you performed it.
Yeah, so it was a collaboration. Dr. David Margolis approached me because he knew that we studied traumatic brain injury, and he has a two photon imaging system, so he's able to visualize neurons in the at the surface of the brain during awake behaving animals.
Hmm.
And so together we devised a method by which we could induce an injury in a way that he could be recording from the brain at the same time, the imaging. So I would say mostly it was his brainchild, no pun intended.
Hmm.
But we were happy to lend our expertise in also analyzing the cellular effects after the injury. Um,
Hmm.
so,
Hmm. I've also found that you do teach a course called Communicating Science for
mhm.
PhD students. Is this the is this a course that you have founded, or is it mostly like something that has been here before? And why do you
No,
think that it's important?
yeah. So it is a course that I helped found. My colleague Nick Ponzio, unfortunately, who passed away,
Hmm.
had this idea, and so he and I wrote a grant together to the borough's Welcome Fund and got money to initiate the class, which has now been going for over 10 years or close to 10 years, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, and it's in my opinion, extremely important that scientists learn to talk about their research in a way that is understandable by the general public
Hmm.
because the public is supporting our research through their tax dollars, and we need to ensure that they know where their money is going and how it's being used, and also that can communicate to other scientists
Hmm.
so that our research can be carried forward by them in different directions.
Hmm.
And also that we can communicate to our policymakers and that they create laws and policies that support science and the
hmm
facts that we are discovering.
hmm Um, what do you think is very misunderstood in the scope of like neuroscience, or if people get neuroscience and psychology mixed up a lot?
Hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of people believe that, for example, mental health
hmm
disorders is caused by the absence of a particular neurotransmitter. Like depression is because you don't have enough serotonin in your brain,
hmm
and therefore taking Prozac or other SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, will just cure depression. But
hmm
things are much more complex than that. I
hmm
personally don't believe that serotonin is the underlying mechanism for major depression. That's one of my research areas.
hmm
So I think, yeah, people see things as too simplistic, or like Alzheimer's is, oh, because there's an ApoE4 mutation or whatever. There's so many more aspects to it that are involved.
hmm how do you see artificial intelligence and if it can expand in neuroscience? Would you say that this can be something that can help people a lot, or if it can be a setback as well?
I think it can help people if used appropriately. I think
hmm
it'll be really great to help with diagnosis of neurodegenerative diseases, for
hmm
example. I've heard some studies where like a computer can detect changes in a speech pattern that somebody who is in early stages of Parkinson's has because
hmm
it's a motor issue, and that a doctor or other machine wouldn't be able to detect that change in speech pattern, but the
hmm
computer can. So, like the early diagnosis using computational and machine learning approaches will be really a game changer for neuroscience.
hmm what was your most rewarding experience as you mentor like PhD and graduate students?
So I had a master's student in my lab who then decided to go to medical school.
hmm
And I told her I think that she really has a knack, a talent for research.
hmm
Um, but I supported her, of course, decision to go to medical school. And then shortly after starting medical school, she came back to me and said, you know what, I really do miss the research. So
hmm
she ended up applying retroactively to the MD PhD program and
hmm
getting accepted to that. So after her first 2 years of medical school, she came back to my lab to do her PhD
hmm
and loved research so much that she applied for a Fulbright fellowship and was
Oh,
awarded that. So she
wow.
got to go work in Switzerland for a few years doing the
hmm
Fulbright, and is now studying as a resident in nuclear medicine. So that's understanding how to
Wow.
use different tracers in the brain to image. And I think she will go on to a very successful career, either in academia or industry, whatever she chooses. So just to see her
hmm
blossom has been really rewarding.
Yeah. Um, typically when students use the path of neuroscience, like they're interested and they do choose on to like do the regular undergraduate, graduate, and then doctorate, where do you think they struggle the most? And has this like and do you think you relate with where they struggle the most? Like if you ever struggled in this path before?
Yeah, I see them struggling the most during the PhD phase
hmm
because they are not used to the uncertainty that research has. Like, there's no defined endpoint. You don't know when your experiments will start working. You don't know when you're going to get a paper. You don't know when you're going to graduate.
hmm
It can be very frustrating to try things over and over and not get successful results. So that is the biggest learning curve and emotional component that they have to grasp. Once they get through that, then I think, going on for a postdoc position or whatever is kind of less stressful.
Hmm.
I have a lot of students who end up going to work in pharmaceutical companies and industry as well, rather
Hmm.
than staying in
Right.
academia.
What advice do you have for people that are not quite at the graduate level, like undergraduate or even like high schooler students?
Yeah, I think high school, just immersing yourself in the literature and understanding the different fields within science that are available to you and how maybe those interact with each other because it's not everything is so interdisciplinary. So um, that is important. And then in college, I think getting involved in research as soon as possible, finding a lab to work in on campus, then doing summer programs. There are across the country, there are programs that you can apply to. Many universities will accept students from other schools for the summer to do research in their faculty's labs. So, having I'd say one long-term research experience while you're an undergrad at your own school, and then maybe one or two other ones over the summers, and just like really getting an appreciation for what research has as trials and tribulations. I
Hmm.
also suggest that people try to do an internship in industry one summer,
Hmm.
maybe the summer going into their senior year of college, because that's a unique opportunity you may not get. Again,
Hmm.
while you're in graduate school, very few PhD students are allowed to do internships.
Right.
So
Hmm. And another question, do you think or in your experience, have the people that you have mentored in PhDs or research, do their projects, once they're in the lab, do they vary in time or are they usually all like within the average years of work?
for an undergraduate or for
For undergraduate, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think they all are within that time frame.
Hmm.
Usually, for example, I would take a undergraduate when they are either they would write to me at the end of their freshman year, first year, and then they would start in my lab sophomore year and stay in my lab sophomore, junior, and senior year. So they may work on one project or maybe a few smaller projects during that time.
Hmm.
Ideally, they do an honors project as a senior so
Hmm.
that they can present it at a symposium and have a poster and really have something that they can show for it. Ideally, they get an authorship on a publication.
Hmm.
Um, so presenting at conferences and being part of a publication are two really essential aspects that are not always attainable, but ideally you can do. And then the other thing is most PhD students take time off between undergrad and graduate school to work full time in a laboratory
Oh,
for 1 to 2 years. Honestly, we don't have a lot of people coming straight through from undergrad to graduate school anymore.
mhm. And
So
one final question. Although like this journey probably has been difficult in some periods, do you like really love the neuroscience experience?
I do. I often will sit in a seminar about another topic, non-neuroscience related, and I just pinch myself to think how lucky I am that I work in neuroscience because that's really what gets me excited and
Mhm.
jazzed about science, is learning about the brain, that area that we can't see or penetrate or anything. And it's a cliche, but they say it's the last frontier
Mhm.
of the human body. So, um, yeah, I feel very lucky to be a neuroscientist.
Mhm. Thank you, Dr. Alder, for this opportunity today. I learned a lot about neuroscience and your experiences and obviously like the advice that you can give to people. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrew.